Robin, it's been nearly 3 years since the last album.
That's right.
It's well known, of course, about the Barbra Streisand album, which was in between there. The Guilty album, which was that her most successful album ever? It must have been.
Yes, it was. And in so much, it was also her first biggest album in Great Britain. Outside the single she had with Neil Diamond, it was her first big solo effort, if one can call it a solo effort. I mean, it had quite a few people on it. When I mean, ourselves and everything, and writing for her. It was in fact a big album for her, not just in this country, but in even some of the Eastern countries, like Poland and Yugoslavia, in countries that she'd never been able to have had her films shown. Because she's one of these people, that considers herself a movie star before a recording artist. And she said this in the studio while we were recording. She said, "Look, honey, I'm a movie star first, so don't, I don't care. I don't even sing at home until I get in the studio. I don't even sing in the bathroom." And I said, "Look, that's fine. But, there's music that is heard in lots of countries where they're not allowed to see Western movies. But, however, they can always hear music because music can't be stopped. It comes over the border. And that is going to be... whenever you record, and the widest spectrum you can record, people are going to hear you in places where you've never, been allowed to be seen as a Western movie star because it's decadent. Yeah. And of course this was proven to be the case. You can't show movies over the borders, but you can send music from radio stations. And of course this is what was happening. And Barbra Streisand was finding markets and success with people she'd never even thought it was possible, like the Polish people, and
so she's got an awful lot to be grateful for, really.
Well, whether it's neither here nor there, but what she has got to be grateful for, I think, is the fact that she's when movies are shown in certain countries now that she's never had a hit movie or people have never heard of her, people that have bought Guilty in these countries will say, well, that's the girl I bought that out. They know her as a recording artist. First, over in these countries, you see. Right. So when they see a movie with her in it, they'll say, "Oh, that's the recording artist. That's the album I bought." Yeah. So she's in this film. So they go and see her. So, records work for artists that are in films as well as, the other way around. So,
following the success of that, you must have been besieged with other people wanting you to do similar things. Have you taken anyone up on it?
We were, because you see, our first love is writing and producing. It's what we've been doing for years. We've been so much in the studios in the past few years. We just haven't had time to think of performing. We love doing those things. We were besieged with lots of requests for us to do other artists, but the fact of the matter is we spend a lot of time in the studio. Barbra Streisand took most of 1980 to record, and it was released in actually November of 80. It was started in I think around December of 1917. Was it 1979? It was started, yeah, and finished then, and. It's you can never say how long, you can never allot a certain time to how long we're going to take. We like to spend a certain time. We have our own studio, and we like to spend a certain amount of time in that studio recording whoever it is. And it's the next. That's what we're going to do after this album, for instance. That we've done our own album. We're going to do probably one with Dionne Warwick, and that should be started in January. So, we're going to sort of always produce and write for other artists. We've always done that, more so since 1976,
There have been so many versions of your songs by other people. Do you have any favourites?
I think one of my favourites of all time, outside Barbra Streisand's Woman in Love song, which me and Barry wrote, which one of my favourite all times, even for me. I mean, when I listen to it now, it's almost like listening to a song written by someone else. That is, I think, the ultimate buzz that I can get is to hear one of our songs that sounds like it's been written by someone else. That's how I like to hear it. Yeah. It's very hard for a writer to feel that way about his own music, but I only get it with very few of our songs because, I think that's the way it should be.
Okay, leave that one aside and look back at all the hundreds of other versions of
out
songs.
Of our own, I think one of my favourite, which wasn't a big hit in England, but was in the States, that was Nights on Broadway, which I particularly liked. And
but other people, you
and
like
now other
the
people,
Candy Stanton version of Nights on Broadway?
No, the one song that I love the most, I don't know if you, again, #1 single in America, was a song, one of my all-time favourites was Emotion by Samantha Sang. To me, I don't care what anyone says, whether everyone has a viewpoint of no music. For me, I think that is an all-time classic that I think that we could have sat down and written. And because of the words and the name of the song, it's just one of those songs that will always be.
It was the Bee Gees, except for her.
Yes, but yes, for all intents and purposes, it was the Bee Gees, but then you can say that about Barbra Streisand as well. And it's it's an ingredient that's worked for a lot of people. And it hasn't always really sounded. You know, you can't say that Emotion sounded like Barbra Streisand or or Samantha Sang, I should say. Sounded there's a different kind of Bee Gees sound on each of those tracks. But
Elvis doing a song. I mean, that was just a thrill in itself. And no matter how the song came out,
what words you mean?
Have Elvis,
Elvis singing words didn't really blow me away. No, Elvis's version of words,
just Elvis.
But the idea of Elvis doing anybody's song, I think, would be a compliment because he was one of the biggest, always will be. And I mean, I wasn't old enough to remember Elvis when he was in his height. That's the first up. I remember my sister falling head over heels.
But there's still the legend.
The legend, of course. I mean, it's like anyone. I mean, I grew up. I became a teenager as the Beatles were becoming really big, and I was in Australia then. And to me, the Beatles were the greatest. That was at that time. And Elvis was just a little bit before my time, but of course the legend of Elvis will be remembered as the Beatles will always carry on
forever.
And as you say, the legend.
I'll tell you what, we'll take a break.